Long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance is actually one of the most highly sought after benefits that employees are looking for, yet it's not offered nearly as much as they would like. Now, if you've watched my video on group life insurance, I do have a program that my team and I have implemented on multiple occasions. It was a life insurance product that was kind of a hybrid long-term care program where if you have the plan in place and doctor diagnoses you with some sort of chronic illness or terminal illness, you're able to accelerate the death benefits and draw off of the death benefit amount every month until depletion. However, long-term care, a little bit different. So if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link down in the bio to my book where I actually talk about long-term care insurance. One of the biggest fears, well, I'll just say all three. So the three biggest fears of Americans going into retirement are fear of outliving their money. Okay. So that's a fear of living too long. Fear of not living long enough. Option or third biggest fear of Americans going into retirement is fear of going into long-term care. Now, when they think of long-term care, they typically think of like a nursing home, a 24/7, facility where they're basically there to die. Long-term care can also be a time where, you're just at home and you have someone come to your house. Long-term care is really, the impact of it, if there's not a plan in place for it, it can be devastating on entire families financially or emotionally. So what ends up happening is you end up in long-term care. Either you deplete your, savings and wealth and everything, and you run out of assets, and you get to a point where you have to go into a state-run facility. That's when you get on Medicaid, and they don't even allow you to make a certain amount of money per month, and you have to get rid of your assets. It's really not, it's terrible. And if you're ever hoping to leave any type of wealth to, your children or your children's children, the state will repossess that in order to get their money back for paying for your long-term care facility stay. So just because you're on Medicaid does not mean that it's free. So it's long-term care insurance does more than just provide coverage. It also protects those who are looking to pass down a legacy, protects you from having those seized by the government to pay for your long-term care. And also, you don't get a choice in where you get to go with long-term care when you are with Medicaid, with a state-run program. That is all government's choice. So if you don't like it, tough luck. But with long-term care private insurance, you do have more options, right? But going back to what happens to folks in long-term care, because a lot of folks don't ever get long-term care coverage. Another thing that happens is families end up just providing the care to save money for everybody. So, you have husbands and wives and even, grandchildren taking turns taking care of their parent or grandparent who is needing care constantly. And it's a drag and a toll on everyone's lives emotionally. And as much as we all love each other, we all have our lives to live. And America is oftentimes a society where we like to be very independent. We don't want to take care of our family members like that. Unfortunately, not everyone's like that, but many folks are. And the people getting the care also don't want to feel like they're being a burden. I mean, it's a tough spot to be in, to be kind of helpless and having your family there to help you out. So long-term care insurance specifically, it's becoming less and less of a product that people get, just because it's not something that builds cash value. So it's in that range of like the disability coverages where like life insurance, you know for sure you're going to die. There's going to be some sort of benefit coming. Health insurance, that's an ongoing thing. That's insurance for you while you're living. But like disability and long-term care, that could be I may never use it, and I'm just putting money into this. And of course, that's the risk that it is. But it's like, if you ever do need to use it, long-term care insurance is one of the best bangs for your buck if you ever do have to use it. The cost of long-term care going up exponentially every year. It's very difficult to qualify for. And even if people do, they aren't necessarily thinking of purchasing it until way later on in life when it's too expensive for the average American to purchase. So some sort of employer paid long-term care insurance is highly sought after in the benefits marketplace, understandably. So it's not necessarily the cheapest product out there, but with the rising cost of long-term care, I mean, an average, annual, the annual rates are astronomically high, and it just depends which services you need. And the statistics of folks going on to long-term care, you can actually watch my webinar where I talk about that, and I bring up some of the most recent statistics. If you want to register for the webinar, that is on our website. I'll provide a link on this page and in the description of this video. But qualifying for long-term care and paying for it, very difficult to do. Also when there's no cash value. So the devastating consequences of not having something like this in place and needing it later on are devastating to everyone involved, family, friends, anybody that you have a relationship with is going to be affected by it. And like I said, if you've built wealth and you want to pass that down to the next generation, if you go on Medicaid and you end up in a retirement facility or a long-term care facility, the government is, especially here where I'm at in Oregon, they are one of the highest asset seizing states in the United States. So definitely good to plan while you're in your 40s, I mean, even your 30s, if you're planning super early, to have some sort of long-term care coverage in place. And if you as the employer can offer it to your employees, they would be very grateful. The statistics and the data reveal that long-term care insurance is one of the most highly sought after benefits in the workplace, and it's not offered in as many places as you'd think. And that's why I think I had so much success in the past with just that simple life insurance product that acted as a hybrid long-term care insurance product, because everyone was so excited about it being long-term care. So to sum it up, long-term care, simplified issue or zero underwriting. When you do it through a group, typically cheaper. And if you bring something like long-term care in, employees are going to be very excited about it.